Sometimes games can be like music, poetry, or film in a way how they present lots of little ideas to you in bite sized pieces, and they all create a whole that kind of walk you towards a feeling, a state of being, an ideology, or a thought process that kind of makes you sit back and go, hmm. You get like proper scratchy chin vibes as you go into thinky emoji face. And that's exactly how I feel about Paradise Marsh. It's a game I picked up on the recent Halloween sale on Steam, and I absolutely adore it from start to finish. It embodies this idea that you wake up on an island or this marshland where the world is spinning around you very, very quickly. And it creates this idea that you've woken up in this marshland because internally in your mind, you're off your axis, or you're spinning off your axis. So the day night cycle happens extremely quickly, but it's also exceptionally beautiful to watch. But at the same time, you have like a world that is totally full of tiny little distinct biomes that are literally about 20 seconds walk away. So you can have an island that's in perpetual rainfall. You've got this beautiful Japanese gardens. There's an autumn falls series of trees. Then there's like an ice biome as well. It's all within very quick walking distance of each other as you wander around with your net trying to capture various different animals. These animals are embodiments of stars that have fallen from the sky. And again, going back to this whole idea of the world spinning off its axis and you not really feeling quite sure where your place in it is and how lost you are in it. You're going around capturing these different animals, and then you'll go to these monoliths that look like they've been stolen straight out of Space Odyssey. And what you're then doing is releasing these animals as stars back up into the sky again. You can then look at the sky and start drawing out constellations so that you can then talk to these animals and they impart words of wisdom back at you. There are also birds that fly around that tweet poetry at you. There's also messages in bottles that are floating around in the water that you can pick up, and it will read you a little bit more about how you feel from like an inner state of being and mental health perspective as this character. It's not heavy-handed, but it does it in a way that's tiny and bite-sized that kind of paints brushstrokes of feeling lost in a modern world where you don't know what your place is. There's an awful lot of like existential crisis going on, and possibly a dive into nihilism as well, in that actually what's the point in everything because we're going to live and die anyway, and your space in this universe is infinitely tiny, so what great strokes are you going to do to humanity, and really then therefore what is the point of your life? And it asks all of these kind of, or points to these kind of big, huge questions and just kind of leaves them dangling there for you to ponder on, which is very easy to do in Paradise Marsh because you're just wandering around. There is no way to die. There is no way to have problems. And you're just creeping around in water, crouching, ready to pounce to collect these different animals as you go along. There's tons of things that you can do to interact with different objects as well. You can eat different mushrooms and they'll make you big or small, like Alice in Wonderland. Different flowers give you different effects as well. There's also wind chimes and harps, different like lily bounce pads to play with. The world is just malleable around you in kind of a hyper-realistic wonderland. But at the arc of it is this whole day and night cycle that goes around really, really quickly. And so you can literally just stare for 30 seconds watching the sun come up from the back of the mountains. And you're like, oh, it's so pretty. But you can only shoot the stars back up again into the nighttime. So you can just sit on benches and it will accelerate the world around you to nighttime or back into daytime, because some of these different creatures only appear not only in different biomes, but at different times of day as well. So it all kind of comes together to create this world off its axis and you trying to put things back together again to make sense of the world around you. And that's what I mean by this kind of inward and outward poetic license that a game can take. I get this with music quite often, where musical motifs or albums point sounds towards an idea but don't go straight in with like a smack you round the head hook. Films do this as well with stories, and Paradise Marsh is a really good example of how you do this in gaming, because the messages in the bottle tell you about one thing, the characters will give you words of wisdom in another, and the visual cues and just the way how the game is set up to be played continues to follow forward on this kind of principle and idea. And that's essentially why I loved Paradise Marsh. So easy to pick up and play. You get that reward from being able to capture and document all of these different animals that you collect. It's quirky, it's odd, but it's beautiful. It's like Proteus, but for 2022 existential crisis era. It's probably the best way I could describe this game. But yeah, thumbs up for me, I love it. Some people might complain that this game is quite short. You're able to get to the end within about 2 and a bit hours. But I have to say that it's one of those games that has made a lasting impression with me afterwards, so it's totally worth the price of admission. Written review will be over on highplayinggames.com. It's probably one for the slightly more artier crowd, but I think anyone that enjoys a cosy, relaxed game will have good fun in general with Paradise Marsh. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/higherplane network. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.